Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving into something called age-related macular degeneration. You'll probably hear me call it AMD. We're going to look at how our own genes can, well, turn against us. And, the solution to protecting our vision, it might just be this incredible mix of super advanced science and, well, ancient wisdom. All right, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll cover the basics. What even AMD is. Then we'll get into who's at risk, and this is a mix of lifestyle and genetics. After that, we'll really zoom in on the specific genes involved, and then we'll explore this amazing hidden world called epigenetics that actually controls those genes. And finally, we'll look at some of the seriously cool therapies that are coming down the pike. Okay, first things first. What exactly are we talking about when we say AMD? Let's break down what this disease actually does to your vision. I mean, just look at the difference here. It's pretty stark, right? A healthy retina is nice and clear. But with AMD, you can see the damage. See those little yellow deposits? They're called drusen, and that's a sign of what's called dry AMD. Now, in the more severe wet form, you can actually see bleeding. All this damage is happening right in the macula. That's the supercritical part of your eye that lets you see things sharply, right in the center. For things like reading, driving, or recognizing someone's face. So AMD isn't just one thing. It really comes in two main flavors. You've got dry AMD, which is by far the most common. We're talking like 90% of cases. This one is a slow burn, a gradual blurring of your vision right in the middle. Then you have wet AMD. It's not as common, thankfully, but it's way more aggressive. It can cause rapid vision loss, and that's because these abnormal blood vessels start growing where they have no business being. Okay, so what causes this? Who's at risk? Well, it's not a simple answer. It's this really complex cocktail of your lifestyle choices and, you guessed it, the genes you were born with. You can think of your personal risk profile as this dance between two different kinds of factors. On one hand, you've got the stuff you can actually control, the modifiable risks. And on the other hand, you've got the stuff that's just fixed, out of your hands. And it's how these two streams come together that really shapes how likely you are to develop the disease. So let's break that down. Over on the left, you see the choices we make. And listen, smoking is the big one here, the #1 modifiable risk. But diet and obesity are right up there too. Then, on the right, you've got the things you can't do anything about. Your age, your ethnicity, and, this is the big one for our chat today, your specific genetic code. And there are a couple of genes like CFH and ARMS2 that are known to be major players. Right, speaking of genes, let's really zoom in on that piece of the puzzle. Researchers have been digging deep into the genetic activity of people with AMD, trying to figure out, okay, which genes are actually driving this thing? And that's really the million-dollar question for scientists, isn't it? See, it's not just about having a specific gene. The real story is about whether that gene is being turned way up, that's upregulated, or turned way down, downregulated, in people who have AMD. Okay, now this is where it gets super interesting. A recent study dug into the gene activity in AMD patients, and what they found is fascinating. Take a look. For both dry and wet AMD, a gene called CRP, which is a huge marker for inflammation, was cranked way up. But at the exact same time, a bunch of really important protective genes were shut way down. It's like a double whammy. The body is flooring the gas on inflammation while simultaneously slamming the brakes on its own defense systems, like that CFH gene we mentioned, which is so important for keeping the immune response in the eye in check. And get this, the scale of this change is just staggering. In people with dry AMD, the activity of that protective CFH gene dropped by more than 15 times. Just let that sink in for a second. 15-fold. That is not a tiny adjustment. That is a complete collapse of one of the eye's most vital defense systems. But here's the twist. It turns out it's not just about the genes you have. It's about how those genes are being told what to do. And this brings us into this incredible field called epigenetics. Think of it as the control panel that sits on top of your actual DNA code. Probably the best way to think about it is like this. Your DNA is this enormous cookbook, right? Full of thousands of recipes. Now, epigenetics doesn't go in and rewrite any of the recipes. Instead, it's like all the little sticky notes and highlighter marks that tell the chef, which are your cells, hey, make this recipe today, or ignore that one for now, and maybe only make half a portion of this other dish.
So, how do these sticky notes actually work in our bodies? Well, a huge part of this whole control system is something called non-coding RNA, or ncRNA for short. And it's a crazy story. For decades, scientists literally called this stuff junk DNA. They thought it did nothing. But now we know these little molecules are basically the middle managers of the cell. They make up a mind-boggling 96% of all the RNA in our cells, and their entire job is to run around and execute the orders to switch our genes on or off.
And they're super clever about how they do it. Some of them act like decoys, basically acting like a sponge to soak up other molecules that might cause trouble. Others act like little tour guides, leading proteins to the exact right spot on the DNA. And some of them just straight up block a gene's message from ever being read. They're like the tiny, microscopic puppet masters pulling the strings of our genetic code. So this all leads to the big, hopeful question, right? If we're starting to understand all these genetic and epigenetic switches, could we learn how to flip them ourselves? And this is exactly where all this amazing science starts pointing towards a whole new generation of potential treatments. Because let's be honest, right now, the treatments are pretty limited. For wet AMD, you have injections that can help manage the symptoms, but they don't actually stop the disease in its tracks. And for dry AMD, there's really no effective cure at all. But the future? The future is all about going after the root cause. We're talking about developing therapies that could actually correct gene expression, therapies that could take control of those ncRNA switches, and even using powerful compounds to protect the neurons in our eyes from getting damaged in the first place. And that brings us to maybe one of the most exciting and frankly surprising areas of research. This quote here points to an incredibly powerful natural compound that scientists are looking at very seriously. And what is it? It's the ancient spice saffron. So why saffron of all things? Well, it looks like it wages war on this disease from a bunch of different angles. For starters, its key ingredients are powerful antioxidants, which fight the cellular stress that really fuels AMD. It also helps calm down inflammation, it improves blood flow to the eye, and it seems to directly shield the photoreceptors. Those are the super important light-sensing cells in our eyes from getting damaged. It's a genuine multi-front attack. And all of this really leaves us with a powerful final thought, doesn't it? As we get better and better at decoding the deepest, most complex secrets of our own DNA, we're also, at the same time, rediscovering the incredible power that's always been right here in nature. So maybe the path forward for protecting our sight isn't a choice between one or the other, but a powerful blend of both.